Welcome to Watchtower History. So now we're back to the Awake article. And remember, Roble wrote it, and Roble is also one of the authors in his book. Roble was a Jehovah's Witness. All right, so now we're going to look at a different section of this Awake article and look at the evidence that we have here again.
So back to the July 8th, 1998 Awake magazine article.
Okay, in this article it says, Rutherford was concerned about the rising tensions in Germany. Rutherford, then president of the Watchtower Society, together with the Germany branch office manager Paul Balzereit, decided to mount a campaign to inform Chancellor Hitler, government officials, and the public that the Jehovah's Witnesses posed no threat to the German people and the state. Rutherford evidently believed that Hitler was unaware of the attacks against Jehovah's Witnesses, or that he had been misinformed by religious elements regarding the witnesses. That's a very telling statement, by the way.
We're going to go back and continue from where you just ended that. But, Jeff, look at what... Can words put into description? Rutherford evidently believed, and back to the unaware, the attacks, misinformed. I mean...
And he blames the clergy.
Yeah.
He blames some of the churches.
Okay, you just got done reading it. Now go where you're going.
All right. So therefore, the Magdeburg office arranged a convention, right? This is the famous 1933 convention. And they wanted to make use of the German citizens' right of petition. On short notice, Jehovah's Witnesses from all over Germany were invited to the Wilhelmsdorfer Tennis Hallen in Berlin on June 25th, 1933. About 5,000 were expected, but they got 7,000.
That matches up with other documents, 7,000.
All right, so the delegates adopted a resolution entitled Declaration of Facts. This document protested the restrictions that had been put on the work of the witnesses. It made a clear statement of the position and denied charges of seditious links with political causes of any sort. Here again,
and we already explained this as to the what it really said in the Declaration of Facts.
Okay, and we're going to go into more detail on it as well in the future. But notice here, Rutherford has to deal with sedition again. He dealt with sedition in the First World War that put him in prison. Now he's got to deal with sedition with what's going on here in Germany. So he writes Hitler about the sedition. He goes right to the source. Well, when he went to President Wilson in the First World War, it didn't help his seditious case. It didn't help him by going to President Hitler either in Germany. So again, we're not going to look at the details of the Declaration of Facts now. We're going to get into that in the future. We're going to go into a lot more depth on it. But now we want to look at the statements about this convention, right? Where the declaration was signed. So in this article, in the Wake article, it says, some now hold that the 1933 Berlin Convention and the Declaration of Facts were attempts on part of prominent witnesses to show support for the Nazi government and its hatred of the Jews. But their assertions are not true. They are based on misinformation and on misrepresentation of the facts. Do you agree with what he's saying here? With what we know?
Absolutely not.
What's the problem? He's misrepresenting the case, I think.
Yeah.
Who's making the claim that they were trying to show support for the Nazi government?
Well, ultimately, Rutherford was making the claim. Ultimately, they're making it seem prominent witnesses were showing support. Okay, so technically, they're correct.
All right. But yes and no. What claim was Rutherford making? Because he did very clearly state he didn't like any of the governments of the world. He's very clearly talking against Germany, right? So in this Declaration of Facts, What is he telling Hitler?
Well, what we know, or what we're going to add into the conversation later. We already discussed this.
Okay.
Okay. Basically, again, to repeat what we discussed, I thought you were going to go after something else. Basically, they're taking the sides with Germany. They agree. They're not, they're not taking money from Jews. We don't want, they're anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Rutherford's only saying that letter that they agree with the anti-Semitic statements, right? And we're going to go into those statements in a future discussion.
And that, and that America and everybody else is against them.
All right. So this article continues. So now we're going to look at some of the photographs. For instance, now he's going to try and give some of the evidence. Critics claim that the witnesses decorated this tennis hall, and it's a tennis hall basically, with swastika flags. Photographs of the 1933 convention clearly show that they displayed no swastikas in the hall. Eyewitnesses confirm there were no flags inside.
Okay, so now once again, and I hate to use the word false flag with a flag, but here they are diverting the attention away from the most important parts of what that would be. We didn't have a flag there. Well, that's not all everybody's accusing you of doing. And right away they focus on, we don't celebrate birthdays. We don't celebrate the holidays. We don't do pagan stuff. No flags with us. And you're missing the whole picture of the whole declaration of facts.
Yeah.
So that one small paragraph right there completely diverted the attention away from the issue, put it on flags in the thing. It's just like saying it's the whole Al Jolson. I never even met Al Jolson. Never heard of him. Do you get that from that too?
Yeah. Now let's look at the photographs. All right, let's look very closely at the photographs. So here's one of the photographs inside. I don't see any flags there. Do you see any flags?
Not in the Awake, no.
Okay, not in the Awake article. All right. Do you see any flags in this photo?
No. It's small, but no, I don't think so in there.
All right.
I see
now
ropes. I see ropes.
Okay, yeah, I can see ropes there. Yeah.
That could suspend a flag.
Do you see a darker shape here?
Yes.
All right. How about on the other side?
Yes.
What shape does that look like? And why is that darker?
I'll use the term banner. I'll use the term banner.
Okay. All right. So there's another third photograph there on the left. Do you see it in the lower corner?
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of see the hall behind them. I don't see any flags on the outside here, but we're only seeing a small segment of the photo there. And you can barely see what's inside. Here's one of the photos, and here's Penton's statement on one of the photos. To buttress this argument, Roble, or whoever wrote the article, and it's very, very similar to what's in Hez's book, so I think that's why he's saying that. They attack critics of the Watchtower and the Jehovah's Witnesses. For instance, critics claim the witnesses decorated the tennis hall with swastika flags. He then asserts, photographs of the 1933 convention show clearly that they displayed no swastika in the hall. Eyewitnesses confirmed there were no flags inside. He also states, critics further state that the witnesses opened the convention with the German national anthem. Of course, in typical Watchtower fashion, he doesn't name the critics, so how could you even fact check it, right? Nor does he quote or cite them directly. All right, and we'll look at the hymn a little later on. In Hez's book, Dietrich Hellmund has an article about the Stand Firm film. And so he's talking about this Berlin Convention. Regarding the Berlin Convention, and this is a whole string of German words, wrote the heading, Facts That Have Been Concealed. The site was decorated with swastika flags. This source is suggesting there were flags. When Rutherford's policy of accommodation did not seem to bear fruit, he reversed course and adopted a policy of confrontation.
Yeah.
All right. All right. The author gets further off course when he speaks of marketing martyrs in connection with the video documentary that's free of charge. He calls Stand Firm Against Nazi Assault a propaganda film. This Meinzer spread the idea that not a single word is mentioned in the documentary about the following. And this source says, not a single word is mentioned in the Watchtower Society video documentary about the following, that the German leadership, along with the international headquarters of the Watchtower Society in 1933, tried to prevent persecution by currying favor with Adolf Hitler. And it also seems to have been hidden under the seal of forgetfulness. On June 25th, 1933, the location for the convention was decorated with swastika flags. When Rutherford realized the attempts at conformity had not achieved the desired results, he formally called for martyrdom from the servile Jehovah's Witnesses in Germany. And we saw that article, right?
Yes, and he wrote
Right?
"Fear them
Right.
not," and he wrote the
Yes,
"Fear them not"
Yeah.
article
Yeah.
to go martyr
Yeah.
themselves.
All right, the cover letter, and we were looking at that cover letter earlier, to the declaration to the legally appointed state begins with appropriate politeness, with the words, Honorable Adolf Hitler, Chancellor of the Reich. A caption about, not as stated by Turk. So a caption about this letter in the permanent exhibition of the memorial to the German resistance in Berlin reads, although the petition is addressed to Reich Chancellor Hitler, it avoids the salutation Führer, which was already in common at the time, just as representatives of the major denominations had done. Leading Jehovah's Witnesses initially had hoped in vain to factually inform Hitler about their objectives. They had hoped he would stop the persecution. But if you remember, when we looked at that cover letter to the declaration earlier, it's using a specific term there that basically is saying, Heil Hitler. Yeah, it's a propaganda film. All right, so now let's look at the photograph again. Here's another statement in Penton's book. He says, fortunately, an ex-witness in Germany, Helmut Lasarek, supplied me with a portion of a word-for-word transcript of a recorded two-part lecture given by the late German Watchtower branch overseer, Conrad Frank. Here's Frank again, by the way. In that talk, The History of Jehovah's Witnesses in Germany, Frank made the following revealing statements about the Berlin Convention of 1933. So this is from the Watchtower official itself. At the last moment, therefore, we were invited to a special assembly in Prussia, thus Berlin, to be held in the tennis hall where a declaration was to be presented. Many were now unable to come to the convention, but I had the privilege of traveling with Brother Albert Rondres from Wiesbaden to Berlin on a motorcycle through torrential rain. But we were shocked when we arrived at the tennis hall the next morning and did not find the atmosphere that we had ordinarily found at Jehovah's Witness conventions. When we entered, we found the hall bedecked with swastika flags. But not only that, when the meeting started, it was begun with a song that we had hoped that had not been sung for years, especially not in Germany because of the melody. All right, so we're not going to deal with the song right now. Let's deal with the flags. So this is a statement that perhaps there were flags at that convention. But when we look at the photograph, we don't quite see flags. We do see something that looks like banners.
And for the record, that the photographs we're referring to are provided by and taken from
the Awake article.
Okay, just to confirm. So these are Jehovah Witness supplied pictures. Now here's an article stating there were flags in the building.
All right, so when I look at this photo, and I used to work in the print industry, and what I did is I scanned this photo at quite a high resolution, and I also colorized it using some of the free software packages that are out there. And when I did that, and I started pulling at the contrast in the photo, I wasn't attempting to adjust the photo in any way other than the contrast. And once I started pulling the contrast, I started to see the shape. And this is speculation, mind you, because we can't see what's on it, but it looks like the shape of possibly 4 banners. So this is speculation, mind you, but it looks like there's possibly 4 banners here, each at about the same distance. We can't see what's on it, but they are the shape of what I would expect a banner to be, possibly a flag. It's for the viewer to decide. This is mere speculation.
Well,
I'm going to label it as speculation.
That would confirm what the German Watchtower branch overseer Conrad Frank stated anyway. So it's confirmed by a Watchtower branch overseer. Frank.
But again,
now, is he the same Frank?
Yes.
Associated with Frost.
Mm-hmm.
And what was Frank accused of doing again?
Yeah, doing the same thing Frost was doing.
So now here he is giving a talk years later. And of course, he's not only traveling to Berlin on a motorcycle, it's through torrential rain to get there. They're sacrificing. Yeah, it's confirming everything. I mean, how can they deny it if their branch overseer is claiming it?
Yeah.
So what did they Photoshop it out of the or remove or darken it to the point you can't see it? Because that's what year was that again? 1998.
This is 1998. I don't know how much they've altered the photograph, because if I look in the magazine itself, I can see the shapes there, right? I can't see what's on the shapes. And so when I colorize the photo using the software that's out there, and then I start just adjusting the contrast, those shapes pop out more at me. I can see something is there. I cannot see what's there. I may be completely imagining it, but I see something there. It could all be in my head for all I know. So, all right.
Well,
so now
when we did it together on the practice thing to get ready for the discussion, it did look like there was something there. And what else would you put there?
Yeah. And I'm not trying to create shapes that are there. These are shapes that are already inherently in the photograph. So if you have it, I have the original magazine, and I also have the bound volume. I see it in both of the photographs. So again, this is speculation. It's up for the viewer to decide how they want to take this. So when I look at the photo and I see those shapes, it looks to me, from a professional standpoint, that there's something there. After we had looked at this photograph for some time, in our research, we found yet another photograph. When I drop this other new photo that we found in and we colorize it, but without any flags or any shapes. Now, if I take and I put this photo on top of the other one and arrange it so that it matches exactly, you can see that this photo is very carefully cropped to not show where those shapes are that we can see in the other photo. Why? Now, what about the song? All right, so I'm going to read the statement from the Awake article about the song, and then I'm going to read Penton's statement. So in the Awake article, he says, critics further state that the witnesses opened the convention with a German national anthem. Actually, the convention began with Zion's Glorious Hope, Psalm 64 in the witnesses' religious songbook. The words of this song were set to music composed by Joseph Haydn in 1797. Song 64 had been in the Bible student songbook since at least 1905. In 1922, the German government adopted Haydn's melody with words by Hoffmann von Fallersben as their national anthem. Nevertheless, the Bible students in Germany still sang their song 64 occasionally, as did Bible students in other countries. The singing of a song about Zion could hardly be construed as an effort to placate the Nazis. Under pressure from anti-Semitic Nazis, other churches removed Hebrew terms such as Judah, Jehovah, and Zion from their hymnals and liturgies. Jehovah's Witnesses did not. The convention organizers then certainly did not expect to win favor with the government by singing a song extolling Zion. Possibly, some delegates may have been reluctant to sing Zion's Glorious Hope, since the melody of this composition by Haydn was the same as that of the national anthem. Except that the hymn is more about spiritual Israel, which was more in tune with the Watchtower's new replacement theology at the time. And that replacement theology, of course, is another discussion for another time. That is actually our next subject coming up on the channel. So stay tuned. It'll be very enlightening. So he's claiming in the Awake article that there are those who oppose Watchtower that said, oh, they open with the German national anthem. And he's saying, no, they were singing Zion's Glorious Hope. And by the way, other people removed Jewish phrases from their hymns during this period. He's diverting the attention away. So when we read Zion's Glorious Hope, the words, glorious things of thee are spoken, Zion, city of our God. On the rock of ages founded, naught can shake thy sure repose. With salvation's walls surrounded, thou shalt triumph o'er thy foes. He whose word cannot be broken, formed thee for his own abode. Built upon this sure foundation, Zion shall in glory rise. Men shall call thy walls salvation, and thy gates shall be named praise. The redeemed of every nation shall with joy thy glory see, and find rest from tribulation, hope and life and peace in thee. Then the streams of living waters, springing from eternal love, will supply thy sons and daughters, and all fear of want remove. Who need faint while such a river ever flows their thirst to assuage? Grace, which, like the Lord the giver, never fails from age to age. Who would faint while such a prospect urges on to faithfulness? Though thy present mournful aspect seem no cause for thankfulness, look not at the things beside thee. Those behind thee have no worth. Let the glorious hope before thee fill thy heart with rapturous mirth.
Well, of course, what they meant by it, what their belief was of the Jews returning to their homeland, Zion coming down from heaven, through Jerusalem, blessing to mankind. The restoration of the Jews.
Yeah, they're referencing the restoration of the Jews, along with the Gentiles that are added into it. In 1933, they had a whole different view of that. So why did they choose this hymn? I think it's still because it was the German national anthem. And the reason I'm saying that, we know that the splinter groups who also ended up in the concentration camp, and we'll be getting into their story in just a little bit, stay tuned, they would sing this song in their camp meetings. In Auschwitz, they would sing it right on the corner there of where Block 15 is. Why? It was an act of rebellion, not an act of cowardice, as the guy in the Awake article is making it out to be. It was an act of rebellion because they could sing about Zion. They could sing about their Christian faith with the German melody.
With the German melody.
Yeah.
Now, okay, with that said, what does the branch overseer, the German Watchtower branch overseer, Conrad Frank, say about the song being sung?
What does he say?
Good.
Okay, so in Penton's book, he quotes him as saying, When the meeting started, it was begun with a song that we had not sung for years, especially not in Germany because of the melody. Though the lyrics were fine, the melody, well, the musicians who are here will recognize that the notes were taken from the melody of Deutschland, Deutschland, Lieber alles. Can you imagine how we felt? Many could not join in the singing. It was just as though their throats were throttled. What kind of leaders did we have who brought us into such dangers and the danger of faltering under these circumstances, instead of helping and supporting us so that we would take a fearless stand against Nazism? May all elders who are here among us learn something from these examples, and may they recognize their responsibilities in such matters in the near future.
To me, that's contradictory. Am I reading that right?
It's contradicting the Awake article.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. To me, it's a contradictory.
Yeah. All right. And what was the Jehovah's Witness opinion about the Jews at the time?
They did not like the Jews. So now we're singing. Yeah. So yeah, they're both contradicting.
Yeah.
Each other.
So I think the song was sung. I think it was
to appease.
To appease. Yeah. And I think some of the splinter groups who still believe the old way, instead of singing it as an appeasement, they sing it as an act of rebellion. Yeah.
And the fact that many couldn't join in, they're showing there's something there that's a contradictory. That, whoa, why are we playing this?
Mm-hmm.
So very interesting.
And I'm saying the song was sung to appease in the sense that the Jehovah's Witnesses, after their replacement theology change, were interpreting this as completely and only spiritual Jews. This was their replacement theology. And that is a subject we will get to at another time. Stay tuned.